Well, hello, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to cover Mr. Snowflake's conversations with Emily. And as we have seen in the last, I think, day, today's Sunday, Amber has been crashing out like we've never seen before. So I'll definitely be covering that. Now, this one's going to be a little different because instead of playing Mr. Snowflake's video, which nothing wrong with him, he has a great personality, great voice, but just for time constraints, I'm just going to read the messages and then react to that rather than complicating it with him, me, and making it extra long. So let's get into it, shall we? So he starts off, I would assume, the interaction with, "Hi, Emily, hope all is well. What made you want to come out now and discuss your time with Amber?" So Emily's reply, "Honestly, I was content staying silent for a long time, but I'm tired of watching her dodge any real accountability. She creates her own reality and then expects everyone to play along. The sad part is, most people do because they're either scared of her or don't want to deal with the drama. But I hit a point where I just couldn't sit back and watch her keep rewriting the truth." Um, According to Amber in her last post, where she basically revealed that they're broke up now, blah, 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 she basically said that Emily would, come to the internet and drag her and this. Isn't that kind of a strange dynamic? Imagine being with someone and anytime they piss you off, you're just going to go to the internet to expose them. Kind of weird. Kind of weird. And with that, I would also like to preface that I don't trust Emily as far as I could throw Amberlynn. So I think we have to take everything both of them are saying with a grain of salt. Because if Emily's going to act like she's this great person, she's not. She's not. She fed her last partner until they passed away. So let's all just keep that in mind as we're listening to both sides. Obviously, I don't trust anything Amberlynn says either, but just wanted to preface that so that I'm not making it seem like I'm completely buying into what Emily is saying as well. So Mr. Snowflake replied with, "Well, I'm glad you've decided to speak up. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. I'm guessing everything was fine in the start of the relationship, or was there any little red flags?" Emily responds with, "At first, everything was great. I really thought I had found someone who was kind, laid back, and just fun to be around. She was able to carry on a conversation, and it's hard to find these days. Looking back now, I obviously was looking at everything through rose colored glasses. She really made it seem like she was this grounded, supportive person." Yeah, and it's very easy for anybody, not just Amberlynn, for anybody to basically be on like their best behavior at the start of the relationship. That's why I've heard people say, or I've read where it takes about 6 months for people to really show you who they really are, where they're comfortable. They're no longer trying to, present the best version of themselves. So, of course, these two whipped through all the stages of a relationship, and I don't believe that Amberlynn can truly keep her true self, hidden for long. I told her up front that I was grieving Colleen, which that's the partner I was just referring to of Emily's, and still will be. She said she understood and respected that. She said it wouldn't be an issue at all. That was super important to me and for her to be accepting of it. And for a little while, it felt good. We actually had fun together. We laughed, we joked around, and it was chill. I genuinely enjoyed spending time with her before she started showing me who she really is. I guess it was a typical scenario of love bombing. After everything I had been through, it was just nice to feel wanted and not so alone anymore. And I think obviously Amber too was in a similar scenario where she's alone and kind of desperate. But in my not so expert opinion, I believe that Emily and her preferences is a huge selling point for Amber. Um, Anybody that's ever felt uncomfortable in their body could tell you once you find someone that actually makes you feel good about yourself, that's very meaningful. So, on that point, I can get it. But I think we understand that anybody who is going to lust over a body type that Amber Lynn has is doing it from a fetish standpoint because that is not something that is not what a human body is supposed to look like under any standards. So I think it's safe to say anybody that would be encouraging Amber to stay that size. Anybody that is relishing her at that size, it's pretty toxic and it's a clear fetish. So Mr. Snowflake then asks, "Was it still nice when she came to stay with you? How long was she meant to stay for?" Emily responds with, "There were a few little red flags early on, like how Amber would get upset if I didn't FaceTime her for hours every single day." Okay, well, that's definitely on brand from Amber, from what we've heard from numerous other people. So that right there seems to be very true from what we've seen. Or if I was busy at work and didn't have time to message her. She asked Destiny, also true. She'd take it personally and get upset. During my first visit to Oklahoma, things actually seemed to go really well, but it was a short trip and we were still in that honeymoon phase. It was during my second visit that things started to feel off. She would get irritated if I checked my phone or responded to messages that weren't about her or focused on her. So I'm assuming she's not talking about shit talking. I'm assuming she's talking about like talking about to friends and family about like, oh yeah, I'm here visiting Amber, blah blah blah. Amber's such a possessive weirdo. Again, this also seems extremely on brand. And it's no wonder that she wants all of her partners to quit their jobs because she literally cannot stand being alone. And I don't know if it's because of her loneliness and the emptiness inside of herself, or if she's just that paranoid that they're gonna like be cheating on her, or maybe it's a combination of both, which I'm sure it is. So Emily continues, that visit also happened right after she posted who I was and the doxing stuff that followed. So tensions were high, so I kind of brushed it off at the time thinking it was just stress. But everything really started to change when Amber came to visit me. Dun dun dun. So Emily continues with, she was originally only supposed to stay for a week or two, tops. It wasn't going to be some extended thing. If that's true though, that makes the fact that she brought her pets all the more ridiculous. Like, bitch, you really couldn't have just left your animals to be comfortable and relaxed in their own home for 1 or 2 weeks. So, that right there kind of lets me know that it was Amber's intention the whole time, even if it wasn't Emily's, supposedly, to stay for a long time. Because I think she ended up staying 3 months. So, Emily continues, we were planning on probably around 2 weeks because that's when I'd be off work and able to take her home. But by day 2 of her being at my house, things had already started to shift. It was weird how high strung she was that early on. I don't know what shifted or it was a change in environment, but she acted off. But she just acted off. Yeah, it's hard to know what the shift would have been other than the fact that Amber was out of her comfort zone. She was no longer in control of the situation. She's, in Emily's territory. Emily has other things around her, her job, her family, her friends, other than Amber. So, I mean, I'm sure it was just the fact that she was no longer the center of attention and under complete control. Emily continues, she really didn't like that I had a life outside of her. Who could have guessed? I mean, I work 12-hour shifts. I have a family, friends, pets, a house to take care of. I have responsibilities. But anything that wasn't about her felt like an inconvenience to her, and she made that very clear. Yeah, that's on brand for Amber. I'd get home from a 12-hour shift completely exhausted from a stressful job, and she'd get upset if I wanted to go straight to bed. She'd say things like, "Oh, you're not going to hang out with me?" or ask me to take her to the casino, or ask me to take her to the casino or go shopping. All also things that Amber would ask to do. And if I said no, she'd get upset and compare it to working on her vlogs all day, saying she still had the energy to do things, so I should too. Yeah, and I think back then she was barely making videos, um, uploading, you know, 3, 5, 6 minute vlogs, if that. Like, give me a break. Amber's work ethic, yes, so you know how powerful and strong that is. So, obviously, your 12-hour shift doesn't compare to me, Emily. I don't understand why you don't want to take me to Target. Amber expected me to be constantly available. If I didn't text or call during my breaks, or if I wasn't giving her attention constantly, she'd get upset or start a fight. All things that Destiny has confirmed that she was doing while they were together, and Destiny was still working and Amber was not. So, again, on brand with our girl, Amber. I told her in the beginning that I need to be able to have alone time because that's how I decompress from stress. I'm sure that went over with the stage 5 clinger that Amber is. We've had arguments about that before she visited too because she didn't like that. She would always accuse me of not loving her and say how terrible of a girlfriend I was. And I believe Beck said that that was a reoccurring thing that Amber would try to use in an argument, basically accuse them of not loving her. She wanted me to call out of work anytime she was having a crisis or just felt like she wanted me to stay home, which I'm sure was on a very consistent basis for Amber. She was always in a bad mood because of this. If I did anything that didn't involve her directly, she would start an argument. Yeah, that's a classic that is a classic narc move. They want to ruin your day. Absolutely. So she continues, I was exhausted trying to juggle everything in my life on top of her constantly being mad at me. Sounds like an emotional vampire, if you ask me. And that's absolutely what Amber is to everybody in her life. We'd get into arguments and she just wouldn't let anything go. She would gaslight, deflect, and just typical narcissistic behavior, which we've seen that on her channel. She does the same thing to her audience. So, again, this is all tracking for me. It got to the point where I started going to the other room just to sleep because she wouldn't stop arguing with me when I was trying to rest before a shift. She came into the room and stood over the bed. What an absolute freaking creep. Like, and that's such a juvenile thing to do. Like, oh yeah? Well, if you're not going to listen to me, I'll just stand here and talk to you. I can picture it perfectly in my mind, but I can't imagine her standing for that long. But yeah. She told me that if I wasn't going to finish the conversation, which was basically her going on and on about how I didn't love her and all this other crap, then said, fine, if I can't have peace from being able to have this conversation, then you're not going to be able to either. God, what a petty bitch. Again, everything with a grain of salt, but this definitely seems like something Amber could. I definitely see Amber doing this. Now I can't see her standing there, but doesn't mean she wasn't being annoying in other ways. She would stand she would then stand next to the bed I was sleeping in and intentionally keep me up all night. Well, we know Amber wasn't standing all night, but I feel like this happened every time she knew I was going to work. Like she was intentionally keeping me up because she didn't like that I wasn't home instead of at work. This stuff was happening more and more frequently. Then Mr. Snowflake adds, sounds like she didn't want you to work and just spend all day at home with her. Well, yeah, that's what she wants from every partner. I'm guessing she used BPD as an excuse for her shitty behavior. Emily replies, she 100% used her BPD as an excuse. That's what frustrated me the most. Anytime she'd have one of her tantrums, she wouldn't take any accountability and say it's because she has BPD. And she does the same thing on her channel. So, again, the same behaviors that she shows us. And she'd be like, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to tell you how I feel. When she would literally scream at me about something like taking 4 minutes longer than I said I would when I went outside to smoke. Um, yeah, we know how Amber likes to time people, but that's just weird. Like, okay, I'm gonna go out and smoke. I'll be back in 7 minutes. Like, I would no, it was probably more like, okay, I'm gonna go out and smoke. Well, how long before you come back? I don't know, Amber, 10 minutes. And then Amber's like, it was 14 minutes, you bitch, you don't bother me. The sad thing is, all of these things are 100% believable. God. Sounds like they had a great time. I can't imagine why she'd ask her to leave. Emily continues, I told her she can't use that as an excuse if she refuses to do anything to help herself to get better. She made a lot of false promises of getting into therapy. She told me in so many different occasions that she was signed up and she never went. Hmm. It's almost as if she could have had a little forewarning of how Amber was if she watched her channel. She always makes promises that she doesn't keep. Mr. Snowflake replies, I remember the video where she said she found a therapist in Wisconsin. And I thought, ah, right, she's been awful to Emily, and this is her way of saying, hey, I'm going to get help. Well, he was spot on with that, obviously. So then he says, so what would she do all day when you are at work? I'm going to take a guess and say nothing. Ha. Lay in bed all day watching reaction channels? Sounds about right. So Emily said, yep, that was one of her manipulation tactics, and staying longer when it was getting to the point where I was asking her to leave. She thought she would get a therapist here. I'd let her stay so she could do the therapy. She did a whole lot of nothing, to be honest. She'd sit around and watch YouTube videos, including reaction channels, all day. I did her laundry. Imagine you have literally nothing to do other than braid Emily, obviously, while they're gone, and can't even be bothered to do your own laundry. I'm sure she'll be like, I can reach. Okay, yeah, whatever. I cleaned up after her and took care of the pets. God. Amber sounds like a great house guest, doesn't she? Wonder if she'll mention there was a pile of washcloths she had to keep up with. She won't ever let Twinkie or the dogs out during the day when she was home. So I'll come home from work. I have to clean up Twinkie's pee off my brand new floor that I put in. I was really proud of that floor because I recently put it in and I did it myself, which is a lot of hard physical work. It literally ruined the flooring because the pee would sit there until I got home from work to clean it. Oh my God. If that's true, that is another level of laziness. And I think we're getting a window into Twinkie's life now. You know, damn well she's not taking her out. Just pee pads all over the floor. That's why I say she never shows the floor in her apartment, and that's exactly why. If you remember one of her vlogs, she talked about her responsibilities of letting the pets out. That lasted about 2 days. This started a lot of fights too. Yeah, I'd be pissed. If I had any, I had somebody that I was romantically with staying with me while I'm going to work, and they can't even do the most basic things like cleaning up after themselves, taking the pets out, cleaning up after the pets. That's it's neglectful, it's gross, and it's just the audacity. Amber just can't be bothered, apparently. So Mr. Snowflake says, ugh, disgusting. Only time I remember her talking about her responsibility with the pets was when she did the video explaining how Rarity got out. I'm sure she talked about that stuff before that, I just can't remember. Actually, before I ask you about Rarity, how bad did the tantrums get? What was the worst? If you're okay talking about it, if not, I'll shut my face. So Emily says the tantrums slowly escalated each time. It started with just her shouting at me, to escalating to her slamming doors and punching walls. Um all of which I think her previous partners have said she did. So sounds about right. I don't know if any of you have ever punched a wall. It's extremely painful. So I can only assume that Amber's chubbiness pads the knuckle area. Basically, like Hulk smashing her fat ass fist into a hard wall. Jesus. Anytime I tried leaving the room, she would block doorways. Well, she is the width of an entire doorway, so that makes sense. She was also really jealous. Anytime I talked about Colleen, I wasn't allowed to share memories or say anything about it really anymore, or she would end up getting really upset and pissed off at me for the rest of the day. That doesn't surprise me. Knowing what type of person Amber is doesn't surprise me. But the worst of the tantrums was actually the night before Rarity went missing. She saw me scrolling through my phone, and there was a woman on my Instagram feed. She flipped out and said I was micro cheating. The argument escalated really fast. That was the first time she got physical with me. Oh shit. She threw things at me. Now, Amber's bitch ass literally just said in one of her last lives, I'm never physical. What am I going to do? Um she said I could do something if I wanted. Look, I could throw this. And we know she was throwing shit at Destiny, so I told her I was going to leave the room. She then grabbed my arm and dug her nails into my arm to the point of drawing blood. I tried pushing past her to get through the doorway, and she pushed back into me and actually falling on top of me. Um, how are you still alive? It's like getting squashed by the boulder in Indiana Jones. I think Casey also said that Amber would dig their nails into his arms. So, again, all on point. Now, I would just like to make this point because, of course, I am a suspicious ass bitch. Um, if Emily was up to date on the Amber lore, these are the things that she would be saying that Amber did. You know what I mean? So if she already knew these things about the past relationships, it would only make sense to say these things if she was making up a story. So just being a devil's advocate a little bit and trying to play fair that it is something that could be made up, but also it's just standard habits of our girl Amberlynn to be a freaking absolute terror to everyone in her life. But seriously, how did Emily not have like actual injuries from Amber falling on her? So Mr. Snowflake responds with, Jesus. And then Emily says, at that point, I was livid. I told her to go back to Oklahoma, and then I was absolutely done. It just pissed her off more. She then grabbed a picture of me and Colleen and held it up and threatened to break it. She knew that was something that would hurt me more than anything she could do to me physically, like the lowest she could go. Okay, I get that, but I mean, you're breaking the frame, not the photo, but whatever. It's still extremely insensitive and immature, and of course, definitely something that Amber would do. Yeah, that's definitely sounds like something Amber would do. But also knowing the relationship that Tommy had with this person gives me strange feelings. Makes me not feel sorry for Tommy at all. Makes me feel sorry for Colleen for having this freaking viper as a partner, but doesn't make me feel bad for Emily. So she then apologized and then tried begging for me back, saying that it was her BPD. At first, she denied that she did any of those things, which that sucked too. And I'm like, am I just imagining these gouges out of my arm? She apologized profusely when she knew she couldn't gaslight me into believing it didn't happen. At that point, I went to my 12-hour shift. Mr. Snowflake says, "Oh God." Then you went to work. Yeah, I mean, I've been in a really toxic relationship before where you have this horrible blowout fight and then you have to go try to act normal in front of coworkers. That's freaking terrible. Emily continues, after work, I didn't want to go back home. I was exhausted, drained, and didn't want to deal with her crap all over again. She had been blowing my phone up all day trying to apologize. Oh yeah, that's definitely Amber. And see if I would change my mind about having her go back home. After work, I went for a walk to decompress. She was not happy about that and was blowing my phone up asking me to come home. What kills me about these situations is Amber would love to go hunt Emily's ass down. She is just physically unable to do it. So, if anything, this gives me a little laugh here because just imagining Amber just flipping out in the house, but can't drive and certainly isn't gonna go walk to get her ass. So it's just stuck throwing your little fits. It was about 2 hours after my shift that I got a text from her saying that she couldn't find Rarity. Mm. Hmm. She said she hadn't seen her all day, and it was just telling me. She said she hadn't seen her all day, but was just telling me this now. Well, definitely makes it seem like an absolute manipulation tool. Just using your poor cat as a pawn in your little stupid game. Good job, Amber. At that point, I came home right away. I figured she was somewhere in the house, and she was just saying that to try and get me to come home. But after I searched the entire house while Amber watched, of course she did, probably following her room to room, she wasn't anywhere to be found. At that point, I moved the search outside. I was exhausted, but searched all hours of the night looking for her. I really thought I would find her that night, but it was no luck. Well, if we're to believe this, yeah, probably because Amber had waited how long? If this is true, that is some of the sickest shit I've ever heard. And how anybody could do that to an animal. But this is Amber. She cares about nothing but herself, and I can absolutely see her in a fit of rage doing something that depraved. Emily says, at that point, I made posters and hung them up all around town to local businesses, posted on social media and lost cat pages. Amberlynn's one job was to call the shelter and make a report, but when I called the shelter after they found a cat that was deceased that kind of matched Rarity's description, it ended up not being her. And I can't remember if this cat ended up being chipped, so they like confirmed it. I don't remember. The shelter told me no formal report was ever filed. If that doesn't speak volumes as far as this was intentional by Amber, to me that's kind of a smoking gun. Like she's doing everything in her power to make sure that Rarity isn't found, or she already knew something happened to Rarity. She did something to Rarity, so she knew damn well the cat wasn't going to be found. Because if she was as desperate as she tried to appear when she came back on her channel raving and crying, like, I don't know where the fuck he is, you'd think you would do everything you could. Obviously, physically, she can't do much, but she can freaking make a phone call. But she apparently was too busy to do that. She's repulsive. So the shelter told her no formal report was ever filed. So the only info they had was the report from the lost pet database that I submitted. So at that point, I filed the formal. So at that point, I filed the formal report with the shelter with her description, but they could call if they had anybody turn her in. I spent hours upon hours driving around looking for her, walking through fields and in between houses around my house through the snow. Amberlynn would go on the drives with me, but obviously didn't do the walking around part. Yeah, no shit. I doubt she even had shoes to put on her feet to walk through the snow. Emily continues, I would get so pissed when we were driving because she would have her head buried in her phone playing a stupid Farmville type game instead of looking out the damn window to find her cat. I loved Rarity, and she was a sweet cat that would always sleep on my chest. I did everything I could to try and find her. I can't say 100% that she purposely let her out, but given the circumstances, the situation doesn't look good. If it was a ploy to get her to be able to stay in Wisconsin longer, then I guess it definitely worked. Okay, so I mean, if we're to believe this, Amber basically exhibiting all the signs of like a wife that their husband and knows he's dead, so they're just trying to play like, oh my god. I watch too much true crime, I will admit that, but the signs are there. The just basically doing everything but being helpful with the situation. But she was more than happy to come on our channel crying like she's so upset. Yeah, because she wants to be the victim in all things. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, she can't even call the place to file a report, can't even be bothered to be looking out the window. That's crazy. So Mr. Snowflake asks, I don't know if you're like Amber and keep old messages, but do you have any messages from Amber about Rarity going missing? Yeah, I do. I have the messages of her initial reporting when she's missing, which is timestamped. It shows that her story that she posted on her vlog about her being missing at 5 a.m. was not correct. Okay, so here's the screenshot of the text. November 17th, 2024 at 10:06 p.m. So Amber says, so am I leaving? Wait, I read that wrong. I also have moments where I snap on you. I haven't been able to find Rarity all day. I need help finding her, please. I've been calling her name and looking everywhere all day. And you're just now saying something at 10 p.m. Okay. And then Emily says, I'm afraid to come home, to be honest. Okay. And then Amber says, I didn't go to the back porch. Wow. So you really made a big effort to find her, right? Amber then says, don't be afraid. I'm not going to cause you any stress. You can come home and go into the bedroom. I'll stay in the living room till you wake up for work. Okay. So Amber's so worried about Rarity, but she's like, yeah, just come home and go to bed. Wow. Seems legit. So this is at same day at 10:26. Emily says, if you didn't hurt me on purpose, why would you regret it? Get real. And then Emily says, I don't want you to touch me. So this is obviously after Amber had been physical. So then Amber says, I regret anything I've done that has hurt you. I understand. Oh my God, Princess is out. She just went upstairs into the bedroom. I was so confused for a minute. Emily, can I ask you something? Emily says, what? Amber says, can I have another chance? Emily says, no. Ew, this is some of the cringiest shit I've ever seen. And yeah, Amber really seems like she's real worried about Rarity in these messages. Seems like she's basically doing anything to try to get a reaction out of Emily. So then Amber says, so you want me to pack my bags and leave? Emily says, yes. Then Amber says, check Snap, please. So then Emily says, I've been abused before and I was dumb to have stayed with her because look what it led to. Don't know what that's talking about, but I'm going to assume it's not Colleen. Then Amber says, I would never do that. I sent a whole video. It's taking forever to send. Again, Amber seems real urgent to find Rarity, doesn't she? She's probably literally sending her a big long snap, like pleading with her, saying a bunch of bullshit, would be my guess. So then Emily and Mr. Snowflake's conversation continues. He says, well, that doesn't look good. She made a couple videos crying about Rarity. Were you off screen watching this? And what did you think? Because her acting is shite. I've always thought I didn't buy she was genuinely sad. Emily says, I was home for a few of them that she filmed. It was always after a fight between her and I. I think she wanted to take advantage of the tears and the crying and put it on camera. That's some freaking psychopath shit right there. Unbelievable. I mean, it's not unbelievable. This is completely believable from the person that we know Amberlynn to be. So again, she said she wanted to take advantage of the tears and crying and put it on camera. I even asked her why you would film right now if you're this upset. She would get pissed anytime I mentioned about the vlogs. She was obviously the expert and always knew the right things to post. Yeah, she knows how to manipulate her audience, that's for sure. And then Mr. Snowflake says, oh yeah, she's smashing YouTube. Emily says, a person can only watch so many about Legos, Choosy, and the occasional bingo session before boredom sets in. She really doesn't do a whole lot of anything. Yep. Other than making herself look like a total idiot, trash, garbage human being, yes. Emily says, usually when she knows she's in the wrong, but doesn't want to admit it, she's over the top and extra dramatic about things. And she was definitely over the top. Yeah, definitely true from what we've seen. Mr. Snowflake then says, what was she like in the following weeks or however long? Was she sad about Rarity? Did she talk about Rarity? He then says, also not to bombard you, but I'll ask while it's just popped in my head and I'm still awake. I just saw a clip earlier today of you and her at the Billie Eilish eyelash concert, whatever she's called. You looked miserable. She would say how much she missed her every once in a while, but she definitely handled it better than I would have, losing my pet. She would cry sometimes, but she didn't cry like she did on camera about her. I definitely feel that this was a huge distraction from the big fight that happened. It seemed to blow over faster than it should have. I wanted to keep it civil while she was here while we were looking for the cat. That's when she tried signing up for therapy in Wisconsin to show that she was going to get help for how she acts. We would argue on and off, though, but she was actively trying to minimize her tantrums. I had bought those tickets for her well before all this happened. They were really expensive, and because they were in a premium seat, I couldn't resell them. I knew how much it meant to her to see Billy, so I took her. I tend to forgive too easily, I guess. Obviously, though, when they were at the concert, the magic was over. So then he asks, how did you get her to leave eventually? Because she told us she left because she's a grown up and has an apartment or some nonsense. Also, again, while it's in my head and I'm awake, I bet driving her home wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. No, I'm sure it was a miserable and awkward 19-hour ride for the pets. So Emily says she couldn't keep up her normal behavior for too long before her true self came out again. Yes, let that be a lesson. The mask always slips eventually, children. And we start to argue all the time. I finally got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore and I told her she's going back home. I drove her back home to Oklahoma myself instead of waiting for her mom to come do it. I don't know why she was so insistent on making it seem like it was her decision. I drove 19 hours straight through and flew home the next day. It took that long because of all the stops she had to take. Now, I swear Amber tried to make it seem like Emily was there for a few days, but my memory is not the best. That was the longest drive of my life, figuratively and literally. Within the first hours of the drive, she was screaming at me so much that Twinkie freaked out and jumped under my feet on the driver's side floor. That is so sad. And no wonder freaking Twinkie cowers and acts like she's afraid of her. She's just she's just so she's a freaking monster. She is truly a 500 plus pound monster, just walking the earth, waddling the earth. I was driving on the highway and I had to pull over because she wouldn't come out. I don't even remember what she was mad at me about. I think it was a comment over me getting to choose the music on the radio. Are you freaking kidding me? A giant toddler, a giant monster toddler. Since I was driving that long and she wanted to choose the music to listen to. So then Emily says, after she was back home, she tried ringing me back in, saying she was going to therapy and actively working on it, and maybe the distance would be good to help us eventually be able to be together again without the fighting. We had a lot of on and off again stuff. Every time I tried cutting things off after things were getting bad again, she'd always have some sort of health scare to bait me back in. Well, yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. But from what we know about you, Emily, that was probably something you also enjoyed. So, freaking freaks. Mr. Snowflake says she's done that on YouTube for years, getting found out or has some big drama, and then returns with, oh, hey guys, I have a new health issue. And also, poor Twinkie. Yeah, those poor animals. She really does not need to have any kind of living creature in her bubble at all. He also says, anytime I've seen that dog on camera, they look terrified. I know why now. Yep, absolutely. He then says, I'm probably remembering wrong, but I'm sure Amber said she was on FaceTime with you when she was in a store with her mom when you ended it. Probably remembering wrong. Sorry. Well, from the sound of it, though, their relationship ended 20 times, so could be. He then says, how did you end it and how did she take it? Well, according to Amber, she just broke up with Emily for the final time when he was talking with Mr. Snowflake. So Emily says both her pets would get scared during a tantrum. Wasabi would always run and hide in his little enclosed litter box when she would yell. Oh, that is so sad. Literally an animal returning to its own filth. I think I saw a special on cats one time that said they do that because they are comforted by their scent. Oh, that's fucking so sad. That is so sad. Emily says, I felt bad for him. I feel bad for Twinkie too, being stuck inside 24/7. Okay, so right here she's telling on Amber, basically saying that Twinkie never leaves the house, which I think we all understand that, and it's pathetic and sad. Wish she could have those animals taken away. I really do. Emily says, I had to say I have no idea about when or what time she's referring to about being in the grocery store. I had to end it from a multitude of reasons. She obviously didn't take it well. There was a lot of threats made of trying to ruin my life. If I said anything publicly of her online, she still tries to reach out to me. Sometimes she's civil, sometimes she's absolutely unhinged. Well, I'm pretty sure the video Amber released today, flipping out, they're literally talking to each other, so neither one of them have the other blocked. Emily then says she did do a lot of threatening anytime she felt she didn't have control of the situation. I'm still worried she's going to totally lose it once she finds out I talked to you. And I believe she did. When I watched that Beck and Destiny collab, I was shocked at the similarities. Unless they're not giving all the details, I feel like she's gotten worse since then, not better. Maybe she was just rough on me because I didn't put up with her crap or fall for her manipulation. I do feel drained too. Not a time it's not a time I like to think about or remember. I appreciate you respectfully listening to what I have to say so I can share my side of the story and not let her control the narrative. All right, so I guess that's it for now. Yeah, I guess my final thoughts again, taking everything with a grain of salt from Emily. And I do believe in a situation, there's two sides to every story. So I don't think that Emily is quite as innocent as she's trying to portray herself, because I'm positive that she is also a very toxic person. Just from what we know from her past relationships and her special interests. So it's heating up, girls. It's getting quite hot in Girl World. So I am very interested to see how this story is going to develop. Obviously, we know that Amberlynn is absolutely losing her mind with this. So very, very interested to watch that and react to that. Because she's gonna spin it the completely opposite way, that she is actually the victim. So a big thank you to Mr. Snowflake for his work. Always the great interviews, always the great questions, always the great videos. I've been a fan of him for a while. So thank you to him. Thank you to all of my channel members. We just recently had 10 new members given to us by Sherry in my last live. So welcome to everybody. If you're interested in joining the memberships, we also have merch. I'll have all that down below. Please consider subscribing if you're enjoying the content. It helps out a lot. We have a lot of fun around here in the boneyard. So thank you all so, so much for your support of my teeny tiny channel. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.